In terms of the priesthood, I didn't choose this for myself. I really believe God called me to this, that everything in terms of my ministry is a gift from God and a calling from God. So I don't see it as something that's mine to possess and to lord over others. It's something that God has called me to. And so I try to, I'm not perfect, but I try to approach it with a certain sense of humility that ultimately I'm just a servant of God in this work.
You guys take all this training, the 7 years you just talked about. Do you think that that gives priests authority over the lay people because of that?
I would say it gives an expertise. Authority is something that is given, I would say, by God, that nobody has authority if it's not first given by God. We receive, by being in the seminary 7 years, an expertise that we have studied things far more in depth than most people have the ability to study certain things in. With that being said, like the church herself, through God, gives us a certain authority, but it's not an authority to lord it over others. See, authority in the church is all about service. Another name of the Pope is the servant of the servants. So our job is not to use any type of authority to lord it over people, but it's to use the God-given authority to shepherd, to guide, to nourish with the sacraments, to nurture. The same authority that a parent has is not to necessarily lord it over their children, but to assist their children.
If you were going to explain to someone that wasn't Catholic, how would you kind of differentiate that expertise versus, you know, sort of that authority? Because from those people's point of view, there's basically all these guys look the same. They're all wearing the exact same thing. So how can I tell the difference, right?
Yeah, I know it's hard. This is one of the greatest struggles with the church, both in the hierarchy and among lay people, is that we don't always give the best witness of who we're supposed to be. Whether it be the lay people in the pews or the priests, that people look at us and say, you're not acting the way that I would expect you to act. And so the only thing to say is that we are a church that is filled with humans. And in many ways, at many different times, human beings in their different roles fail to live up to their role. So yes, you might get a bad example of a priest, or you might get a bad example of a lay person, but that bad example doesn't necessarily discredit what it's supposed to be. You might have a bad doctor, you might have a bad coach. That doesn't mean coaches in general are bad, or doctors in general are bad. That yes, at times humans make mistakes and humans are sinful. That's why we need the mercy of God. But the priesthood itself, or the authority itself, is not necessarily bad just because it's not always exercised properly. I pray that all of you might have a blessed weekend, that it might be a weekend filled with rest and relaxation and a reminder of God's love for you and of God's love for your family. May God bless and protect you always.